Ippo had an explosive punching power ever since his debut, the kind of power that could shake the entire arena with every hit he landed. And that raw force stayed pretty consistent throughout his entire boxing career right up until the end. There was only one real exception, that one insane moment when he sent Kojima flying across the ring. But even that wasn't just normal strength, it was fueled by pure rage, a classic rage boost, the kind of thing that always gives character a sudden god tier power up in anime and manga. Now that Ippo's retired, people naturally assume he's gotten rusty over time. You'd expect that his strength might have faded a bit, that his body's aged just enough for him to need to relearn the sport from the ground up to get back into this rhythm. But something surprising happened. Not long after stepping into the new role as a coach, just analyzing and guiding other boxers, he had this one short mid-session with Kamogawa and everything shifted in that moment. The energy in the room changed completely and the sound of these punches hitting the mids was so intense you could hear it from the outside the gym. Kamogawa had to start moving faster just to keep up with the flow, and that's when it hit him. Ippo hadn't declined at all. In fact, somehow he had improved. He had gotten even stronger during his retirement. Over time, after stepping away from the ring, he actually kept developing it a little bit, quietly, without even actively training like a pro. But that strength also comes with a warning. It's terrifying to think what could happen if Ippo ever lost control, even for a split second. So the question is, how did Ippo get stronger even though he was retired and hadn't trained for months like an active boxer? The answer lies in Ippo's earlier training, right before his last fight, when he invented the diagonal dempsey roll together with Kamogawa. Ippo took the first step toward the next evolution by adding an uppercut to his dempsey roll combo, which led to the vertical dempsey roll. To do this, he had to train his own strength and leg muscles intensely, resulting in a deadly finisher even though it wasn't quite perfect at the end. Then Kamogawa stepped in and helped Ippo develop the diagonal dempsey roll. For Ippo to use the diagonal dempsey roll properly, he had to balance himself perfectly so he could throw those unpredictable punches. To improve his balance, he started wearing weighted wristbands, the same ones Sano used before his second fight against Ippo. Ippo wore those bands on his wrists and ankles all day, no matter what he was doing, eating, training or any other activity, so it would be easier for him later to use the diagonal dempsey roll. However, Ippo had a problem. During the final phase of his career, while still active, he had accumulated too much damage. This made it hard for him to keep his position in his last fight and caused problems in maintaining balance, which led to moments of panic. Don't get me wrong, he could still one-shot his last opponent Antonio Guevara, but he definitely had the potential to hit him even harder and more precisely. This shows that even with the physical toll, Ippo's evolution in technique and training allowed him to reach a new level, but it also hinted at the limits his body was starting to show. After Ippo retired, he didn't take any more damage to his body and suddenly had a lot of free time to just chill and do nothing. But even though he wasn't actively fighting or training like before, he kept wearing those weighted wristbands every single day. It wasn't just a habit, in some way Ippo still wanted to stay fit and keep himself ready, even if it wasn't for an upcoming fight. Then after he became a coach, Ippo trained for a short time with the other Kamogawa guys. Compared to them, he was still way ahead in terms of skill and development, except for Takamura, who was just on another level. Even though Ippo was retired and was only training to support the others, not for himself or any other competition, his presence made a difference. There was this one special mid-training session that Ippo and Kamogawa did. It only happened once, but it was super interesting to watch. Kamogawa immediately noticed that Ippo had actually gotten stronger, even though he hadn't visibly changed much. It wasn't about muscle or speed, it was something deeper. What really happened was that Ippo needed that long break to physically and mentally heal from all the damage he'll take over the years. That time off gave his body the chance to recover, but it also let his mind reset. And as he healed, his precision improved drastically. When he was still active, his punches were explosive and powerful, but now, through his diagonal dempsey roll training, where he gained much better control over his whole body, his punches became way more precise. That precision made his shots deadlier, even if it wasn't explosively fast as before. The wristbands played a part in this too, helping him keep his strength steady despite the long period of inactivity. So even though Ippo was out of the ring and resting, his body and technique evolved in a unique way, proving that sometimes stepping back and recovering can lead to a new kind of strength. This kind of strength though is honestly kind of terrifying to watch if Ippo loses control. You see, Ippo was training mitts with Kamigawa because he was secretly teaching a new student how to box, this guy Tehei. Ippo wanted fresh students because he wanted to understand boxing from a beginner's perspective to become a better coach. But the truth is, he couldn't find anyone who actually wanted to learn seriously except for Tehei, who was a total delinquent. At first, Ippo didn't want anything to do with him. Tehei was rough around the edges and honestly, Ippo wasn't interested in dealing with a troublemaker. But after some time, he allowed Tehei to train with them on one strict condition. Tehei must never use his fists on strangers and only use boxing for self-defense. Because of this promise, Ippo took Kamigawa's mitts to train with Tehei, seriously trying to teach him the right way. Then one day, Tehei didn't come to training. Curious and worried, Ippo went looking for him, only to find Tehei beating up other delinquents using the very boxing technique Ippo had taught him. It was a shock for Ippo and he confronted Tehei and told him to stop immediately, but Tehei just laughed in his face. He called Ippo a naive idiot, threw the mitts away and said whoever taught Ippo boxing must be an even bigger naive idiot. That moment shattered Ippo's heart and filled him with betrayal and rage. So much rage in fact that he slapped Tehei so hard with his left hand, the one with the wristbands, that Tehei got a concussion. And all of that happened because someone dared to insult Ippo's coach. Of course, Ippo and his new students were forgiven for their incident later, but that moment revealed something important. If Ippo doesn't keep himself in check, he can turn into a straight up monster. It's like what we saw in his fight against Kojima, where he was pure rage and fury, completely consumed by the desire to crush his opponent. That overwhelming anger forced Kojima to literally fly through the air from the force of Ippo's punches. But imagine if Ippo could harness that kind of power and control it instead of letting his emotions run wild. That's a scary thought and a huge potential for growth. Beyond those two moments though, we have never really seen Ippo fully unleash that raw, uncontrolled power. There's a mental block holding him back. He's not ready yet. There are certain things that need to happen, certain criteria that must be met before he can truly break free and reach that mindset where he can let go and fight at his absolute best. But he came really close. He was on the edge of slipping into that monster mode, that zone where everything clicks and he's unstoppable. The times Ippo sparred with fighters from his own generation were the moments he came the closest to turning into a monster, and you can see it in his eyes. The way that he was drawn during those fights, it's the same wild look he had when he gave Tehei that legendary slap. I've talked about these spars a lot on this channel already, but their importance to Ippo's growth is still as relevant today as ever, especially since the whole monster concept was introduced. From a pure power perspective, he accidentally broke Wolf's ribs and gave him a brutal beating while unconscious. And if he hadn't been starved, who knows how much worse it could have gotten. Or take his last bar with Sendo. Sendo was throwing punch after punch, relentless as always. But Ippo, knowing Sendo had a world title fight coming up against Martinez, was afraid of hurting him, so he just clinched him until the end of the spar. Sendo couldn't move him an inch. The moment calls back to Ippo's final pro fight, where Guevara also tried to trip him but failed, because Ippo's body was like a brick wall, even being compared to a giant boulder. If you ask me whether Ippo's still improving his power, I would say yeah. If he locks in the right mentality and has the right strategy, he can absolutely throw those monster punches again. And if he does, it will prove once and for all that he is not just a former champ, but a full-blown terrifying force in the ring. If you have enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more anime Ippo content. I'm the Relearn Crow and thanks for watching.